Hey, how about you, everybody? Welcome into the third episode of Inside the 20 with myself and Keith Niebuhr. Our job is to get as much information to you as possible before the 20-minute mark. Today, we're going offense. Keith, we're going offense. We've got some more news on offense, some new news on offense, specifically offensive line, Keith, where you went, spoke with Janoris Wilson, I believe, probably the number one tackle target on the board. You've also spoken with Elijah Felipe, arguably the top junior college offensive lineman on the board, along with Isaiah Jada. Keith, where do you see Auburn's offensive tackle recruiting?
Yeah, well, you just mentioned some of the big guys. I mean, I think number one is Janoris Wilson, obviously from Lakeland, Florida. And we've got to distinguish this. And I know you've done this and I've done this before, but they're really recruiting three different layers of player. You got your high school players. You're going to have your junior college players because you're going to need some guys to come in and compete for starting jobs early because of who you're probably going to lose from the current team. And then later on, you're going to have to go in through the secondary market, which is the transfers, grad transfers and regular transfers. But so at the high school and junior college level, we've identified a bunch of big targets, guys you just mentioned. But Janoris Wilson, to me, may be he's certainly one of the biggest of the high school guys. Now he's only 6'4", Jeff, but he's, it's interesting for a tackle. Now he could play guard or tackle, but they're telling him, Auburn being them, they're telling him tackle right now. And even though he's only 6'4", he's close to 300 pounds, and he's long. He's got long arms. He's not wide. He's not tapped out physically. So he is built like a tackle, even though he's not 6'7". And Jeff, a couple years ago, I looked up the All-Pro linemen in the NFL, and you think all the tackles are 6'7", 6'8", but there are All-Pro tackles that are 6'4" and All-Pro centers that are 6'6". It just really depends on the skill set. Not always just the body frame and the body type. So there's a lot of different factors, but they love Janoris Wilson. Auburn has a huge lead, his words, a huge lead for him right now. And I don't even know who the main competition is. Probably UCF. North Carolina came in and offered recently. He could pick up some new offers. If he keeps playing at a high level, he's not playing for a high-level program, Jeff, or a high-profile program. More offers could come in, but he's going to officially visit Auburn Penn State weekend, which is September 17th. And it wouldn't be a shock. He said, hey, I'm going to have a decision soon. It wouldn't be a shock if he's on the Auburn commit list in the near future. He almost committed a Big Cat weekend. In fact, his mom was pushing him to commit. He was the one that held off. If you love a school and mama loves a school and those two are really close, Auburn's going to be hard to beat. So that's the main guy at the high school level. Juco, you've talked to the one guy. I've talked to Elijah Felipe, who's got 3 years left. He's from Lackawanna College in Pennsylvania. I actually went to Kobe Bryant's high school. I think it's Lower Merion, just outside the Philadelphia area. He got a lot of schools after him. South Carolina, I think Penn State's sort of been looking at him as well. But he's highly interested in Auburn. He hasn't set up an official visit. And one of the reasons, Jeff, and I'm going on and on here, but
keep going.
Yeah, he plays on Saturdays. And
I saw that.
Yeah, it's crazy because the junior colleges in Mississippi get it. They play on Thursday night.
In Kansas.
Yeah, it's great. Their kids can go visit schools. That's what you want. But this school plays its games, and a lot of them do. I'm not just knocking Lackawanna, but they play on Saturday. So he's got one open week in his schedule, and it happens to be the week after, I believe, a week or two after. Yeah, a week after Auburn's 5-game homestand ends. Okay, so luck of the draw is that he probably won't be able to officially visit Auburn until after his season and after Auburn's season. His season ends the 19th of November, but Auburn doesn't have the Iron Bowl at home this year. So kind of some bad luck for Auburn there. But as of right now, he plans to officially visit. They're just trying to figure out when. It's almost certainly going to be after the season. I think they've got a realistic shot with him, and I know Auburn feels that way too. And I think that was reflected on your hot board, which you released on Wednesday.
Yeah, and another junior college offensive tackle, like you said, 3 levels. We're covering basically the high school and JUCO. We're covering 2 of them right now because we just don't know what the transfer portal is going to be like come November, come December. So as of today, you've got 2 guys identified in the junior college rank. Is it Felipe or Felipe?
I think gosh, I've only called him Elijah. We've talked about.
There you go. I like that.
I think it's Felipe, but I need to ask, I guess, right?
Felipe.
Yeah,
I think you're right. It's got 1 L and 2 P's, which is
for a guy that gets his last name butchered as much as mine. You think I'd have the common sense to ask somebody how to pronounce their last name, but I haven't yet. I'll get there.
Oh, Mr. Niebuhr.
Yeah, Niebuhr.
Niebuhr. Janoris Wilson on the hot board, offensive tackle recruiting. You got Janoris Wilson. We talked about him. Elijah. We talked about him. Bo Hughley is a guy we've been tracking since since the spring. He's committed to Georgia from Langston Hughes. He's been to Auburn several times. He loves playing the recruiting game, in my opinion,
Yeah.
Keith. And but I still think he's worth watching. I mean, even Chad Simmons, the national recruiting director for On3, thinks Auburn's worth at least watching here.
Well, then you had the big update on DJ Chester this week, which I thought was pretty fascinating.
DJ Chester, yes. Going to take Ole Miss, Michigan visits. Also going to come back to Auburn. To me, he is probably the top swing guy. And when I say swing guy, you guys probably know more than I do, but he can play inside, he can play outside, he can play guard, he can play tackle. I think he's actually taller than Janoris Wilson, or damn close. So he's certainly a guy. I think he is at the top of the board as far as interior guys go. Clay Whedon is another guy on the inside, another swing guy, Clay Whedon, who you've spoken with a couple of times, Keith, since his commitment to Michigan State. Here's an interesting guy, Keith, I think you talked to recently, was Sean Tompkins from Covington.
We didn't even mention him. Newton High School, which is in Covington, Georgia, put a lot of guys into major programs. Auburn signed Dre Butler, the junior college defensive tackle, a few years ago. He was from that high school. So he actually knows Dre. They're good friends. And he said, you think Dre Butler left Auburn and transferred to another school, so you'd think that he'd give Auburn a bad review. The contrary, he's talked Auburn up to this young guy. So he's committed to Baylor right now. And Baylor's offensive line coach, Jeff Grimes, the one and only, the former Auburn assistant, who knows a thing or two about recruiting offensive linemen. So you have to like that evaluation from Baylor. Auburn offered Sean Tompkins a few weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago. He's trying to figure it out. He's almost certainly going to get over to a game. The question on Auburn game, the question is, will he get an official visit? Hey, he talked about proximity to home. He talked about the fact that it's in the SEC. That's appealing to him. But Auburn's got to get him over there. They don't really have much of a relationship with him yet. So they're a little late on that one. And not to anyone's doing. I mean, just sometimes it works that way. Guys emerge late. So they've got some work to do. But that's another guy. So they've got a lot of irons in the fire. And you really don't want to sign 8 high school guys. You only want to sign, what do you think, Jeff? Maybe 4 high school guys, a couple Juco guys, and a transfer. I mean, you know what I mean? They don't all need to be high school guys. So they've got one committed in Braden Joyner, and they're very much in the game. He's a center. They're very much in the game with, 8 to 10 other guys.
Right.
Well, that's not, when you look at it that way, you say, got one in it with 8 to 10, only need to sign 4 from the high school level. All of a sudden, things don't look so awful.
Right. And you know what? Another Baylor guy that we didn't mention. So with Tompkins, in my opinion, you got Baylor out in Texas. He's here pretty close to Auburn, an hour and a half away. Yeah. Auburn also after another Baylor commitment, Isaiah Robinson. Now he's a 4-star tackle from Arlington, Texas. So Baylor's got proximity to home on him. Did you talk to him, Keith?
I think I did talk to him at one point.
I do too.
He's considering a visit to Auburn. Right. I don't know whether he will do it or not. I mean, they're also recruiting a kid, Jamarian Kennedy, out of Louisiana, and they haven't offered him yet. He's a guy that they're going to evaluate. They're going to watch him play his first few games, see how he does. And in fact, he told me last night, I said, have you heard any more from Auburn? He's a defensive lineman, offensive lineman, but I think Auburn likes him at center guard. And I said, have you heard any more from Auburn? He says, yes. And he said, I also will after Thursday, which is my first game. So that tells me that Auburn's looking to see a little bit more on this guy. There's going to be still new targets emerge. They know they want another center because even though they have Braden Joyner, because of their pursuit of
Connor Lew.
Yes, Connor Lew, who committed to Miami, who, by the way, they're still recruiting. And I think you had this on your hot board. They're still recruiting. So, they got a lot of irons in the fire. But who do you feel best about? Janoris Wilson. You get him on board, and that would give you 2 offensive line commits out of the high school level. At that point, you only need 2 or 3 more. Right. So you're halfway home, essentially. So, again, given that the lead with Janoris Wilson is so big, provided that doesn't change, you get him, and you're, again, things are looking up. Then you can
take a deep you can exhale at that point, right?
That's right. And you can be a little more patient with guys. You can ride a few recruitments out. You don't have to reach for guys early. Which sucks because sometimes when you reach for a guy early, you end up having to drop the kid. It's not ideal.
Right.
You find better guys late. So, that puts them in a much better spot. And obviously they're going to know more. Penn State, Missouri, LSU weekends, as kids visit a lot, they're going to know at that point, hey, we got a shot with Sean Tompkins, or we don't have a shot. Where do things stand with Bo Hughley? Well, it looks like he's still Georgia. Let's go in another direction. So there's a lot of different things. And also with the Juco guys, sometimes Auburn historically, and I think this staff is similar, Jeff, they sometimes don't like to get a Juco guy committed until late because they don't want to scare off the high school guys.
Absolutely.
So there's always a chance by October 1st, let's say, they may be in really good shape with one or two Juco guys, better shape than we know because they don't want the guy to commit yet. And, so you're
at least publicly.
Yeah. They may know, they'll know things privately that we may not know publicly. So, but I think getting Janoris Wilson, not letting him get away. They've owned that recruitment. They were early on him. They offered him in early June. They've been on him all summer. He loved Big Cat, not losing him. And I say losing because they do have a huge lead. Keeping him, getting him officially on board. And I'm not saying he's unofficially on board, but I'm saying getting that done is priority number one, and then move on from there.
For all the reasons you just mentioned, to me, that makes him a must get for Auburn. You cannot,
absolutely.
Absolutely. A couple of more guys, Jotavius Shivers, who was high on Auburn before. He's from Villa Rica, Georgia. He's committed to South Carolina. I expect Auburn to stay in that recruitment. Another offensive lineman from Louisiana, Tyler Johnson, who's going to announce his commitment, I think, later this week or even this weekend. Auburn has not offered him. They want to see more senior film on him. If he does what they hope, you could see Auburn getting more involved in his recruitment. Some other offensive linemen, in Gerard, committed to Arkansas. Auburn is recruiting him on both offense and defensive line. He'll come back for a game. Got a lot of good connections and relationships with Arkansas. That might be tough. Kelton Smith, rock with McElderry, and Connor Lew. We talked about him. All guys to keep an eye on moving forward. Moving outside, Keith, you had a story this morning on Adam Tompkins.
Hopkins.
That's what I said. Adam Hopkins.
We're both struggling with names.
It's too early, big dog.
No, and it's too early, and we're getting old. I called the guy Terrence Lewis last week. Remember, Lewis Carter, can't even get his name right.
Adam Hopkins, 4-star wide receiver from Thomasville, Georgia. You talked to him. You expecting him to come in for an official visit soon?
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal. He wants to come in for the Penn State game, officially, unofficially. He doesn't know yet. But, sometimes we take this for granted. I mean, most of us listening have cars. We just get in the car, go where we want to go when we have time. Well, he's got to plan this thing with his father. He's very close with his dad, and they got to make sure it lines up with dad's schedule. But ideally, the Penn State weekend would be great. You want him there because it's a big game. But also, Adam does not play that Friday night. So if you wanted it to be his official visit weekend and it worked out with him, that might be perfect. Because, again, you could get the full 3 days with them. A lot of kids, as you know, or Jeff and everybody listening, sometimes they have a game on a Friday night. They come in for an official visit, and that official visit's a little shorter than a normal official visit. And so if a guy doesn't have a game on Friday, you get him there Friday afternoon, he's there for the full ride. But so it seems like they sit well. We're hearing more and more from our sources that Auburn's in good shape with them. He doesn't really know me that well. We've only talked twice, and so he's still not ready to call anybody a leader or tell me who's really involved. But from what I can gather, he says that FSU has been on him, Arkansas. But he said last night or the night before we're recording this, hey, I've got like 10 or 11 schools I'm still talking to. And I said, but wait a second, you say you're going to have a decision soon. How are you going to narrow it down? He's like, well, that's the hard part. So he doesn't quite trust me yet, Jeff. I pressed him, like, where does Auburn sit? And he just says they're one of the teams. So, but again, our intel, trusting our sources, our intel tells us that Auburn not only is very much in the picture, could possibly even be the favorite. We both think maybe the team to beat, but we'll see. We got to learn a little bit more.
Right.
He almost committed to Texas A&M this summer. That kind of fell through. But good player. He really loves the receivers coach, Ike Hilliard. He said, look, I didn't know who Ike Hilliard was, but my dad said, son, you remind me of Ike Hilliard. And, that's not a bad thing. That's one of the subtle little things in an interview, Jeff. Dad was an Ike Hilliard fan, I could tell from that. When Ike played at Florida and then in the NFL. Remember, that's worked for Cadillac Williams for years, right? People, hey, I remember this guy, I want him to play for this guy. He's a legend. And Ike Hilliard is an SEC legend, especially down in Gator country. So I think that helps. I like where Auburn sits, and we'll go see him in the near future and see what he has to say in person.
Quickly on the tight ends, I really don't have anything to add. I know Auburn is what?
I don't have much either.
Yeah, I mean they're in on a lot of tight ends, all of whom are committed already to other schools. But I'm expecting to see some visits. These guys will be on campus. Brett Norfleet, Missouri, I think he's coming in for Penn State. But Jelani Thurman, Auburn's going to stay on him. He's committed to Ohio State. Reed McKeska and Jackson Carver both committed to Miami. And then another guy, a new guy to me, was Kamari Anderson, who is a 3-star tight end from Detroit, who's committed to Cincinnati. I think he's worth keeping an eye on. And then Auburn's still kicking the tires on Ty Lockwood, the Alabama commitment. Looking at, and I could probably go over the quarterback real quickly. We know Auburn's still recruiting Brock Glenn. J.J. Cole, the Iowa State legacy, is committed to Iowa State from Iowa. Auburn's still trying to get him in on a visit. And, of course, Emory Williams, Auburn's keeping him warm down at Milton in Florida, who is also committed to Miami along with Jaden Rashada. So there's a two quarterback class. Auburn's looking at like the 2 quarterback classes when it comes to quarterbacks and trying to poach one. So there's those three guys are certainly the guys to keep an eye on at quarterback. Go ahead.
Yeah, with J.J. Cole, I would only say that, Matt Campbell, the head coach at Iowa State, is very well thought of in NFL circles and college circles. And, what if this Nebraska job opens up? Do they back up a Brinks truck to that guy's house? Does any other elite job open up? That guy's name's always going to come up for one of those jobs, right?
Absolutely.
And so, and maybe even NFL jobs too. So that's why you keep recruiting a kid that's a legacy that seems like he's rock solid to that school, because you just don't know what could happen, right? You just don't know. So with J.J. Cole, anything's possible.
Yeah, you would hate for Matt Campbell to take another job at the end of the season and J.J. Cole be looking for another spot, and you're over here, twiddling your thumbs because you thought he was a lock to Iowa State.
That's right.
So good on Auburn for staying on him. At running back, we've got Jeremiah Cobb already on Auburn's commitment list. Of course, Roderick Robinson looks to be the top guy on the board. And a new name to me was Isaiah Augustave. Augustave, maybe that's it. Who is committed to Arkansas. He is from Naples, Florida. Keith, somebody was asking this morning, is Naples, do you know much about Naples as far as competition goes?
Yeah. Oh, no, they play all the big schools. That is a very good area. I'll tell you, some of the guys from, I put it in one area, Naples, Fort Myers, right? So Richard Young, the number 1 running back or 5-star running back committed to Alabama, he's from Lehigh Acres, Florida, which is right down the road from Naples. It's in that area. Deion Sanders was from that area. The freak, Javon Curse, played in the NFL many years. He was from that area. So it is strong. They play very good competition. Every few years, Naples will be in a state final. So, yes, they do. They play excellent competition, Naples, Fort Myers. They really do. I think it's the most underrated area. Well, I'd say it's one of the 2 or 3 most underrated areas in the South. I actually love that Space Coast area, too, where Cedric Hawkins, Auburn's safety target, is from Cocoa, Florida. I think those are 2 of maybe the 3 most underrated areas in the entire South. So, yes, very good area. Who else is from there? Tavares Dawson, Auburn's receiver, is from down there. Sammy Watkins was from down there, the great Clemson receiver.
Sure.
So, yes, 1,000 times yes. Great area.
A lot of talent, a lot of good competition down there.
Yes.
With Cobb, who's a smaller back, Auburn's wanting to get a bigger back to kind of complement him in this class. Roderick Robinson is the 4-star kid from San Diego, California, is committed to UCLA, but definitely taking other visits. He's going to visit Texas A&M September 17th, considering a visit to Auburn for the LSU game. And then keep an eye on Isaiah Augustave, who appears to be a bigger back like Robinson. If Auburn could get one of those 2 to pair with Jeremiah Cobb, I think they would have the ideal running class.
Jeff, can I interject one thing on Cobb? I know we're running out of time.
60 seconds.
One thing to watch with Cobb. I mean, yes, he's locked in with Auburn, but if he keeps playing like he's playing, there's going to be people begging him to visit. Okay, the Georgias of the world, right? I mean, the Auburn already beat out Clemson to land him. So I'm not saying he's wavering. I'm not saying he ever would waver. Just don't be alarmed if USC and Notre Dame and schools like that get involved, because he is damn good.
That's a good problem to have, man. That kind of shows what you've got right here in Jeremiah Cobb, and other schools are trying to poach him. Keith, we appreciate it, big dog. Inside the 20, we have done it again for Keith, for Zach there in the back, man. My name is Jeffrey Lee. We appreciate you guys. Hey, if you haven't already signed up, today's the last day. Auburn Live on 3, $1 for an entire year. Keith will loan you $1, so that makes it free for an entire year. We appreciate all the subscribers, all the listeners, all the fans, man. We really do. We couldn't do it without you. Y'all stay out of the left lane. See ya.